Please join me in welcoming the aforementioned Mercedes Schlapp, Eduardo Bolsonaro, and Daniel Di Martino. This is when we dance.
Oh, there they are.
This is
glam, people, glam.
Mercedes should do Dancing with the Stars.
Yes, you're
That's
right.
what we need.
I could salsa dance, although my sister-in-law is much better at the salsa dancing than I am. Hi, everyone. Okay, so has it just been the 2 most remarkable days ever? I mean, you know, but what's been so amazing is that there's just this incredible energy in the room. And, you know, I always first have to start with, like, the really adorable silver-haired husband of mine, Matt Schlapp. Not you, Robert O'Brien, Matt Schlapp, which he's such a gem. We've been married for 18 years. We've 5 kids, 2 dogs, and it's such a blessing that you are in my life. And you have to remember that's when CPAC years ago was really kind of different and smaller. And it's the way it's been pointed out to me. It's America. It's truly about America coming together. True patriots, people who love this nation, people who love freedom. And so I'm so proud of the work that my husband does, Dan Schneider, and the fabulous ACU CPAC team. They are family to us, and it's really an honor to work with all of you. So just want to say thank you. And Robert O'Brien, it's great to have you here with your lovely wife, Lo Marie, and joining us this evening. And I think one of the things that we have really enjoyed is talking about the policy, right? You know, we really have to learn the facts. And in these different panels of today, Dan Schneider led one panel on China, for example. We've had conversations about 5G. It's such a broad range of discussion. We've talked about the economy with Larry Kudlow and Ivanka Trump. And tonight, I have the great honor of having 2 very distinguished guests. I got to spend a lot of time with one of the guests in CPAC Brazil, which was absolutely fabulous. And we're going to talk about people who have been impacted by socialism. You know, obviously our theme is America versus socialism, and these 2 individuals have lived through it. And so I want them to share with us their stories. First, I have Daniel Di Martino. He's a Venezuelan freedom activist and an economist who's joining us. You've seen him on Fox News, and is a really inspiration to our youth and a great messenger and voice on this topic. And Eduardo Bolsonaro, I had the great honor of meeting him and his beautiful wife, Heloisa. Is she here?
She is there.
Where is she? Hi.
Please clap. She's wonderful.
I really don't know how she puts up with him, but she does. No, we love you, we love you. And Eduardo really just opened his heart and he brought us over to CPAC to Brazil. And I have to tell you, I've met a lot of talented politicians in my lifetime. President Donald Trump, who's my favorite. But Eduardo is incredibly charismatic, and people love him. The Brazilian people love him. We would be stopped every 2 seconds. And you were so engaging with all those people and all the Brazilians. And it was just wonderful to be part of that experience with you. And what I loved was learning your story and your fight for freedom in taking down Lula's socialism and rebuilding the country. So I'm going to start with you, Eduardo. Tell us, you lived through it under Lula's regime, the socialist regime. How was it?
Well, it was terrible. In the end of the regime after Lula, we had Dilma Rousseff, And in Brazil, we faced the biggest protest ever in the history of Brazil. We are talking about 4 million people on the streets all around asking for the impeachment of Dilma Rousseff. Because we are not only talking about a corruption system that steals like millions of dollars. We are talking about billions, maybe trillions of dollars. As you know, Cuban regime is kind of a cancer that we have in our region. And time after time, they need other countries because they live as parasites. So it was our turn to host this parasite called Cuban regime. So what they made, they stole billions and billions of dollars, especially from a public bank called BNDES. So we built, with the money of the Brazilians, we built a port in Cuba, subway in Caracas in Venezuela, and other stuffs in Nicaragua, everywhere around. Shame on us that we were financing this kind of other dictatorship regimes. So in the end of the day, people was fed up of so much socialism, and they were asking for something different. Everybody were looking for that, and no one was going to the jail. So Jair Bolsonaro became an option during the election of 2018. And if you let me, Mercedes, I have to remark something. They tell that we are racist, xenophobic, homophobic, we don't like women, we don't like, I don't know.
Sounds familiar,
everybody.
people.
I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yep.
But during the campaign of 2018, my father got stabbed. And almost never you see the press telling you that who stabbed my father, it was a former member from the Socialist Liberty Party that we have in Brazil, extreme left. So who are the intolerant? You know, in the end of the day, like people was realizing that. So, you know, we faced it for the first time something called silent vote. I don't know if you have it here.
Oh, yes, the silent Trump whisperer. The silent vote, I think we know.
So this is pretty much how Jair Bolsonaro got elected, also because he was the only one talking against gun control. And in the first year that Jair Bolsonaro is in the office, it's easier nowadays for the Brazilians to buy a gun. And we faced the number of the murders going down 20%. So it proves what we talk here. It proves what we talk here. And poor people from Venezuela, sorry, Di Martino, but you have a strong gun control there since, I guess, 2012. And who have guns in Venezuela?
Right.
Only the collectives and other terrorist groups that we know that are there in Venezuela.
Eduardo, walk me through, obviously the socialists did a lot of damage to Brazil, especially in the school system, right? How they rewrote textbooks. What changes have you and your father worked on to change the course of how we're teaching our young people in Brazil?
First, we have to keep the internet free. My father, he went to the second round with his oppositor. It was Fernando Haddad, a member of the Workers' Party. And he was publicly talking about control the internet, control the media. But they always use smart words. They say, we have to democratize the media, democratize the internet. But what is that? Like, in the end of the day, it's put someone to control if, oh, you can tell this, no, you can't post that, you have to block it. We all know what is going on. Even without this kind of policy, we see what Twitter is doing. I was just here looking Donald Trump Jr. earlier today, talking about it, and we have the same problems in Brazil. And why we need to keep internet free? Because this is sometimes is the only way that our students have to show to people that what is going on in the secrets of the classrooms. And don't come tell me that, oh, this is something that you are stimulating, like people do videos with the teacher talking. No. It's the right of the students to receive a nice education. There is no parents that let their children in the school to the children learn about sex or drugs. Am I wrong? Is it something like out of the world? For sure not. This is the normal thing. So we have to do the normal thing. And I have to add that in Brazil, you have some schools that the situation was so bad that it's necessary a new program that in Brazil is called the civil military schools. By this program, we are getting film schools where we are having militaries working, on the coordination of the schools. So the teachers are regular teachers, but on the coordination have the militaries. Why? Because they bring discipline. Where they are, you don't have drug dealers together with the militaries in Brazil. So we are trying to make something effective to Brazil go up international rankings as the PISA exam organized by the OECD, and Brazil usually is on the last position. So we are trying to get a better education, not talking about gender ideology. This is not the problem of the Brazilians. The problem of the Brazilians is because the teachers are afraid to get punched during a class or sometimes even killed by students. So this is the real problem that we have, and this is what we are working. Bringing freedom. We have to make a comfortable atmosphere to the students learn better.
Absolutely, yeah. Eduardo, one of the things you talk about, and we had a lot of this discussion back when we were in Brazil, was free markets. You're about the trading with the United States. How do we open up more markets? You and your father are very focused on how we can create economic opportunities for Brazilians. Talk us through how that transition has had to happen from a socialist, more central planning type of government to now allowing for this economic growth.
Yeah, first of all, we are, for the first year, after so many years, that we finished 2019 with no corruption scandal in Brazil. So if you are going to travel abroad, thank you. If you are going to travel abroad asking for investments, no one is going to lend your money for a place where even the president is in the jail because of corruption. So this is the first step. Yes, and sometimes they went outside of Brazil and lied for you, talking that Mr. Lula da Silva was like a kind of a political prisoner. Don't believe in that, please. This is the biggest criminal that we have in Brazil. But okay, back into the free market. Now, as Jair Bolsonaro got elected, not spending even $1 million during the whole campaign, he had independence enough to name whatever he wants to be the minister. So, in this scenario, he named Mr. Paulo Guedes as the economy minister of Brazil. So, after over, 30 years, now we have someone liberal in economy talking about free trades, free markets in Brazil. Before that, it was only socialism and, a lot of regulations, a lot of interference. And in the end of the day, our companies was going out even to Paraguay. All respect to Paraguay, but Brazil is a big country, 200 million consumers, a lot of resources. Why we have companies like running away to Paraguay? So after that, after we have Paulo Guedes in the head of the economy ministry, we signed free trade agreement with European Union. That is something that was stopped for 20 years. And we made, in my opinion, what was the main reform that was necessary for Brazil. It was the pension reform. So very sensitive. People was not believing that Jair Bolsonaro could do that because he was stopping with the pork in barrels. But we made it, and Brazil, thanks God, last year we generated around 1 million new jobs, and we grew up a little bit more than 1%. And this year, we're going to double size it.
Excellent. Eduardo, I said it briefly in the video, but it really was a moment when we were in CPAC Brazil. And I'll tell you, like, it's rowdy and fun here, but in Brazil, it's like a party. It's like Rio.
It's like Maracanã Stadium.
Totally. They are dancing, they are singing. Like, we need to get some, like, songs going with our CPAC. So it was really just an amazing experience. But what we found in common, there was so much that we found in common. And one of the issues that kept popping up was the fake news.
Yes.
I thought that was fascinating. Literally, they would speak in Portuguese and they'd go, da 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 da, and then it would be like fake news, and then everyone would just jump up. And you're going, wait a second, it happens here in Brazil too? And so I had so we had the opportunity to meet certain journalists who are trying to break the trend too in Brazil. Can you tell us, I think it would be great to tell us the story of, when your father got elected, which was a shocker, right? Everyone thought, how did he could possibly do it? But there really was this effort to stop him from the news, from the media.
Yeah, the mainstream media in Brazil, biggest part of them, they were very used with government's money, which in the end of the day is people's money. So in Brazil, we had support from really few small YouTuber, like not big channels. We have here, for example, Alan dos Santos from Terça Livre. Is a channel in Brazil that, that is fighting back against all of that. And yes, but the mainstream media was fake news everywhere. You have even a very famous video of Jair Bolsonaro talking to the Globo, which is the biggest group when you talk about the press in Brazil. He's in the video saying, work hard, because if I take the office, I will end with the money for you, because we have other priorities, security, education, and all of that. So this is one more thing that he's accomplishing. Like people in Brazil, sometimes they're not used with the politicians that during the elections time say something and then they change their mind. But Jair Bolsonaro is keeping his promises. And if you think you have a better situation here, imagine in Brazil where we never had a CPAC, we don't have even a Fox News, yes. We don't have almost nothing. Like things are changing step by step, but it's still we're still living in a hard scenario. And that's why it's so important we keep the internet on. And I don't think that without internet, Jair Bolsonaro would get elected. So this is how we live there and how we fight back, exposing them, because they're so ridiculous when you talk, especially when you are nazis, fascists, and all of those things that for sure we are not. And for sure, 57 million people that voted in Jair Bolsonaro are not.
Yes, and that's why social media plays such a critical role. I mean, when we were in Brazil, the only channel that, well, we didn't understand Portuguese, but as much as I speak Spanish, it's really not the same thing. But it would be CNN International. That's all. And then all of a sudden, Jake Tapper would show up on the screen, and you're like, oh boy. So do you imagine the perception that the international community has of our president because they're watching CNN International? It just is so sad to me. I'm like, they don't get to see the full story of all the great accomplishments that the president has had so far. Eduardo, any last words? What message do you want to leave with our friends here at CPAC?
If you go back during the 90s and ask for Venezuela, that Venezuela would face in 2020 a dictatorship, a narco-dictatorship, as they are living now, they would say that you are crazy. So what you have to do, pay attention, because freedom is a daily fight, and socialism is there. They are always trying to make up, trying to change some details, but in the end of the day, what they bring is death, starvation, and all of that we are looking in Venezuela. So keep your country free, do not vote in Bernie Sanders, and please re-elect Donald Trump.
Thank you, Eduardo, Daniel. Thank you, CPAC.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was spectacular. Really, you guys are wonderful.
It's a great honor to welcome Ambassador O'Brien to CPAC. Thank you so much, sir.
Matt, thank you for that kind introduction. Matt and Mercedes are great Americans, and it's great to spend the evening with them. So I'll tell you that I think we saw a couple of future presidents just a moment ago. I don't know if it's future presidents of Brazil, Venezuela, or the United States, but any of those countries would be fortunate to have Eduardo or Daniel represent them. But what how great was that?